So today, in honor of Tu B'Shvat, which is, as I told you, Jewish Arbor Day, and because it's Shabbat Shira, the Sabbath of song, and the crossing of the Sea of Reeds, I thought I would look for something about trees that was very, very special. And some of you might remember a poem by excellent Joyce Kilmer. That's a man. His name was Joyce. And I love this song as a kid growing up, and it's about a tree, and it ends, you'll hear the lyrics about what's special about trees and how they're made. So for Tu B'Shvat and for Shabbat Shira. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
We tend to be lucky that every Shabbat sort of feels like Shabbat Shira here, but in fact this is Shabbat Shira, the Shabbat of song and the song of the sea. And so I would be remiss if I didn't invite everyone tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We have Nava, I think it's 8 p.m. We have Nava Tehillah. We sing some of their music during Tefillah. They're a remarkable group of Israeli musicians who write both poetic and also liturgical music, and so we invite you to join us. It's fantastic. I'm sure there are a million other things I could invite you to, but I'm just gonna, that's the one that's front in my mind on Shabbat Shira, but the rest are in your Eyes on Wise, so you should look at that, right? It was 8 o'clock. I was right, yeah. I checked. Mike was an ordinary kid. To get out of piano lessons, he and his younger brother tried, unsuccessfully, to scare away their instructor, tinkering with their piano stool so it collapsed when the music teacher sat down. He hated doing the dishes, loved ice cream and the board game Monopoly, and sometimes popped the heads off his sister's dolls to use them as baseballs. So we stand this week at the shores of the sea. Our Torah, through our leader Moses, has led us to the Sea of Reeds, where we stand, afraid and excited to cross over. Now, Moses was not entirely ordinary, what with growing up in the palace adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. Nor, however, was he particularly special until he was. And as with Abraham, the rabbis wonder why Moses? What set him apart that he should be the one chosen to lead the Jewish people from slavery to freedom? Why did he, the guy who didn't even want the job, get chosen? So one answer, by the way, is that he was the only one to answer the call. He is the only one who saw the burning bush. We're taught to believe that the miracle in this story, the awesome sight, is the bush that burns and is not consumed. But if you think about it, how many other shepherds walked right by and didn't notice? The laws of combustion, I'm told, say that you would have to watch wood for some time before you would even know whether or not it was being consumed. And so Moses had to watch for several minutes before he could even say, I must turn aside now so I can see this awesome sight. Moses had to stop to observe a miracle. So that's one answer to why Moses. But there's one that I've always liked better, one that speaks more to who he really might have been as a person. So the rabbis of the Midrash teach the following story. Moses was shepherding his father-in-law's sheep one day until one of them bolted. Moses followed this runaway animal until it reached a body of water where it stopped for a drink. Moses, who'd been pretty annoyed to have to chase a sheep, compassionately said to the sheep, "If only I had known that you were thirsty for water. You must be exhausted from running." And saying this, he scooped up the animal, placed it on his shoulders, and headed back to his flock. And at this moment, God says, if this is how he cares for the sheep of man, he is definitely fit to shepherd my children. So this past week, I asked our religious school students what qualities they think make a great leader and was a little apprehensive to see what the answers might be. But as usual, I was moved and impressed by their answers. Rather than what I expected, right, strong, authoritative, loud, confident, our students offered words like loyal, kind, not bossy, and on like that. And apparently, for the most part at least, God agrees with them. So this week's Torah portion is one of my favorites, and spoiler alert, you should come tomorrow to hear the beautiful and special melody that's used to chant the Song of the Sea. But as much as I love hearing the Song of the Sea and all of the music of Shabbat Shirah, it's actually the verses just before that inspire me each and every year. First, the Israelites kvetch to Moses, as we do, who continues to assure them of God's presence and protection. God will battle for you, he promises. You. Keep it down over there. And at that moment, just as Moses is comforting the Israelites, God speaks to Moses and says, "Ma titzach alai? Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward, and you lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it, so that the Israelites may march into the sea on dry ground." Our great commentator Rashi notes that Moses doesn't actually cry out to God. Rather, he simply assures the Israelites of God's ongoing presence. So in this theology of partnership, God hands the reins to Moses and says, "Be a leader. You've been a shepherd, guiding the Israelites from behind on their path ahead. Now it's the time to lead them forward. You, Moses, you take up your hand and lift up your rod and lead the Israelites through the sea. You, Moses, not some supernatural being, no incredible Hulk, not even an idealized version of yourself, just you as you are." Now, Moses' story begins, as all of ours do, with his parents. And we met them a few weeks ago in the Torah when the text taught there was a certain man of Levi who took to wife a daughter of Levi. And there's a beautiful medieval commentary that says the reason the Torah doesn't mention either of their names is to teach us that every Jewish home has the potential of giving birth to the Redeemer of Israel. Mike was an ordinary kid. To get out of piano lessons, he and his younger brother tried, unsuccessfully, to scare away their instructor, tinkering with their piano stool so it collapsed when the music teacher sat down. He hated doing the dishes, loved ice cream in the board game Monopoly, and sometimes popped the heads off his sister's dolls to use them as baseballs. He was an ordinary kid, said his childhood friend Marty Smith. Just later on in life, he did extraordinary things. Later on in life, no one called him Mike anymore. He was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And yes, he was the son of a preacher, which might have given him a leg up in the sermon department, but he did actually once receive a C in a public speaking class. And yes, he would stand before thousands and deliver speeches that are still powerful and resonant and beautifully crafted to this day. But when, as a kid, he would have to offer a Bible verse before dinner in the family home, he would always pick the shortest one. In other words, he did not, and we did not necessarily know from the start that he would be extraordinary. He chose it, or perhaps it chose him. So I get to spend my Thursday mornings in our early childhood classrooms, and trust me, if you need a pick-me-up on a rainy, gray day, I highly suggest freeze dance with a bunch of 3-year-olds. And this week, I was sort of given the task of trying to speak both about Dr. King and about Tu B'Shvat, which is not really the most natural pairing that you would think of. So here's what I offered them, and I'm going to offer it here because I think it works for us also. Tu B'Shvat, this holiday of the trees, is about taking the time to see the beauty that is in front of us, what is easily visible to our eyes, and to celebrate and bless that bounty. When we stop and honor Dr. King, however, I think that we are taking the time to imagine, as he did, what beauty could look like in the world. We honor someone who had the audacity not only to ask what if, but to fight tooth, nail, and ultimately life to bring it into existence. As we well know, Dr. King's dream has far from come true. But as we honor his legacy, what would it look like for us to imagine a what if? What if we were to imagine a world that was manifest in beauty inside and out? And what can we do to birth it into existence? Shabbat Shalom.